Okay, we're going on a little journey. Let's say we're in a car or a truck, fancy Tesla, whatever you want. And let's think you envision it how you want. Maybe it's nighttime and the music is blasting and the windows are down and the air is going through your hair. Or maybe it's early in the morning and it's quiet. And there's very few sounds except for, your tires bumping, finding a rhythm on the asphalt. And driving along and you're wondering about, that special somebody, or maybe you're freaking out because you don't have that thing done for work or for school. And you glance into the rearview mirror, you check your teeth, you check your hair, and who knows, maybe you're thinking about what's going to happen next in that book you're reading. Then suddenly 20 minutes have gone by and you realize, oh shit, I don't know who's been driving, but it wasn't me. And you can't believe that you didn't just take out like 20 cars and trees along the way. So we've all been there, right? Sometimes our brain just flat out goes into autopilot. And it's really pretty incredible what the brain is capable of once it's been shown the ropes, right? And this is one case where autopilot was most definitely a good thing when this happens. But sometimes autopilot gets turned on in life in general for extended periods of time. And the effects aren't necessarily always as positive as they were in this case for driving. Today we're going to be talking about the pluses and minuses of doing things over and over and why it's good for the brain sometimes and why it's not so good for the brain sometimes. We're also going to be talking about why doing things out of the ordinary can be actually a really good thing for helping your brain to learn. Now, I'm a speech therapist, so I'm going to be talking about how all of this applies to helping your child with their speech. But I think you'll find that this could apply to just about any area where you want to kind of change something with your children and hope that it can generalize. So ears on the radio, but eyes on the road, because it's time to chat. So have you ever heard the term neuroplasticity? It is, if you haven't, kind of what it sounds like. Neuro, like neurons in the brain, and plasticity, like plastic. And so it's essentially the brain's ability to be kind of like plastic or changeable. In this case, the actual ability to carve out pathways in the brain so it can transfer information from one area of the brain to the other. And it's a fascinating process that really scientists don't fully understand, but we do know that it happens. And when you're going to carve out new pathways in the brain, I don't know have you ever been camping and maybe tried to carve in a stick? And when you first try to carve in it, it can be difficult, especially if it's bumpy, to go down the same line over and over again. But the more you do it, and as the groove gets deeper and deeper, it's easier to travel down that path, right? Well, so carving in the brain is similar to that. So, next time that you're having a hard time doing something new, you got to give yourself a break a little bit because your brain is literally trying to kind of like you're carving in that stick, carve out some new pathways. But eventually it'll be a nice, easy groove and you'll be able to do it. And one thing to realize here is that children's brain are much more plastic. It is much easier to carve out pathways in a child's brain than it is an older person's brain. So it's more like, with a child, it's more like carving, into soap or butter or something. And, with an older person, or I certainly feel like it's more like carving into oak or something. But once you get those pathways going, amazing things can happen. It's like if you've ever watched Eric Clapton play guitar or some virtuoso on the piano, I'm sure you found yourself saying, how in the world do they do that so effortlessly? Now, of course, we know that it was not effortless at all, that they spent years and years doing things over and over and over again, right? It wasn't always effortless for them. It took years and years for them to solidify those pathways so that they could get their fingers into autopilot. And it served them very well, right? So there are clear benefits from doing something over and over again on a regular basis. And in a little while, we'll talk specifically about how this can be applied to speech, your child's speech, so that eventually your child is producing correct speech like a virtuoso. Now, on the other end of things, when you do something over and over again on a daily basis, it can be easy to miss things. Like maybe you got to work today without even really thinking twice about it. And you didn't really notice the things around you or if there were people walking down the street because you didn't necessarily have to, right? Your brain is used to going through the motions. And sometimes in life, we do tend to get from point A to point B without actually paying attention to how we're driving. I saw a quote that said, brain plasticity is a two-way street. It's just as easy to generate negative changes as it is positive ones. And this can happen on a small scale or on a very big scale. So it's important for not just for you, but for your kids to shake things up a little bit and do things out of the ordinary. And we'll talk a little bit about what you can do specifically in that regard. And I mean, if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, our brains really need to notice when something unfamiliar is happening, right? For a number of reasons. Like today, if you were headed to work on that drive you make every day and a velociraptor or something ran across the road as you were driving down the road, you would need to notice, right, in order to protect yourself. But there's also not much of a chance whatsoever that you would ever forget such a thing, right? So doing things out of the ordinary is really a great way to remember things and to start carving out new pathways. It kind of kickstarts. Now, obviously, there's not a lot that you can do necessarily to deal with the bureaucracy of the schools and the wait time and insurance and all that. I mean, I suppose there are, but that's a discussion for another podcast. But there are things that you can and should do as a parent. And the first thing that I want to get across, more important than anything, is that you as a parent or any family that is closely related to the child is their single most important asset. And on a number of levels, right? Obviously generally in life, but especially when it comes to speech. Try not to think about a speech therapist as the person who is going to fix your child's speech, and then that's it. You need to kind of think of them more as a person who can identify the issue and lay out a plan for your child. Because really, if all your child is going to get is a meeting with a therapist 1 to 2 times a week for 30 minutes, it's usually 1 time a week, the chances of quick progress for your child is really pretty low. Things can get drawn out quite a bit. You know, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Articulation therapy really is not rocket science. It's not that difficult. I kind of think about it like playing a guitar. If you handed me a guitar and somebody played a C note and you told me to play it, there's no way that I would be able to identify it. I don't have a musical ear. But if somebody who knew how to play guitar said, oh, well, that's a C note, and showed me where to place my fingers and how to strum the guitar, I could do it relatively quick. So think about speech therapy like that. Once you know what to do and how to do it, you can be off to the races and you can get really good at it. The second thing that you kind of need to have in your head about fixing speech is that it is more than often about awareness, listening, hearing. See, most children, and in particular in early childhood from, birth to 5, children don't really realize that they're not making sounds properly. So building awareness into daily life is the next most important thing. Once you realize that you're your child's most important asset, the single most important thing is awareness. And I just simply can't say this enough. Awareness, awareness, awareness. Now we'll talk a little bit about. Okay, and third, don't feel like you have to try to add things to your already busy schedule when it comes to practicing speech. I mean, great. If your child is happy to sit down and practice and you have the time, great. If you can't, it's about adapting. I mean, I think it's safe to say that most people are already filled to the brim with things that you have to do. I mean, as it is, you already probably don't get everything done, right? And adding speech drill to your day when you're just trying to, feed the kids and bathe them and, pull marbles out of their noses. It can be hard. We get it. At the end of the day, it's hard to add extra things to your schedule. So really, the best thing to do here is to adapt and build speech activities into the things that you're already doing. So really, the best thing that you can do here is learn to adapt and to build basic and easy speech activities into your daily life, to things that you're already doing. And they can be a lot of small things. They don't have to be long periods of time. They add up. And, I realize everybody's life is different, but here are just a few examples of what I'm talking about. Number one, earlier we talked about awareness, and you want to start with oral awareness. So when you are doing anything like brushing your teeth with your kid, or they're eating using the spoon, having a popsicle, name the body parts. We take for granted that we know all the different parts in our mouth, like molars, front teeth, top of your mouth, bottom of your mouth, palate, tongue. Make sure that they have that awareness, first and foremost, of all the different parts and where their tongue. And number two, try the best that you can to make communication for your child a positive experience. This might be a time when you got to talk to siblings, brothers and sisters. We don't want to say things, I don't understand what you're saying, Do the best to keep morale up. And if you do understand them and they've gotten closer to making their sound, use a lot of positive reinforcement. Anything that can make this a positive experience is a good thing. Number three, have a list of maybe 3 to 4 words or syllables, depending on where your child is at as far as making the sounds, that contain your child's speech sounds. And just kind of have them ready in your head. If they ask for something like juice or the iPad or whatever it is that they're wanting, before you hand it to them, ask them to repeat just those 3 to 4 words or syllables before you give it to them. So it's just kind of quick, rapid fire. Give this a try. If they get the sound right, great. But if they don't get it right, don't focus too much on the fact that they're getting it 100% right. What this is doing more than anything is creating an environment of awareness. Number 4, build target sounds and words into play. And by that, I mean the sounds that your kid is working on. So if you really want your child to improve with their speech, you have to play. Play with them. Let's say your child is working on producing the k sound. As you're playing with cars, overemphasize the k in cars. So cars. Name people who are driving, Carl or Carrie. When you're overemphasizing these sounds, what we call this is auditory bombardment. The more that they hear these sounds, the more that they're going to hear that they're not making it correctly, and they're going to hear the right way to make it. Now, it's great to try to get your child to repeat these sounds properly within the words here and there during the play. So it's great to try to get your child to repeat these sounds properly within the words here and there while you're playing. But even if they can't, or if they won't, continue overemphasizing and pointing out that you are making the sound from time to time. You know your child, use your intuition, pick your battles when they want to say it or not, but overemphasizing is not going to hurt. And, ask them if they hear it from time to time. Again, this is what's happening is you're slowly but surely building in awareness into your environment. And, it might sound a little bit crazy, but really, this alone will help tremendously with progress. I've seen it happen over and over again. It's almost like learning through osmosis. And, it doesn't have to be just during play either. That's the best time, but it can be while you're driving or you're at the grocery store. So again, here you can see that you're not adding extra things to your life. You're just making small adjustments into what you're already doing. Number 5, if they are willing to practice, do this during times of routine when you're kind of doing things anyway. Bath time is a great time to practice speech. If you're driving in the car, that's a great time to practice speech. Also, if you read to your kids at night, make sure that they say their sound just one time or many times if they're willing before you turn the page. Number 6, if your child wants to play with the iPad or phone or some sort of screen, and most kids do, have them play with a speech therapy app first for at least 5 minutes. There are a zillion of them out there, but there are plenty that you can have them work on. We actually have a free app here at the clinic called the Chatterbox. It has nearly 1,000 practice cards in it. Pull up a deck on the app with cards that have their sounds in it, find some images, you can make silly sentences or just go through them. And this one is great because, they get to play with a screen and you don't have to feel as guilty. Now, ideally, you would be sitting there with them while they're playing with it. But at least if they do this for 5 minutes, it's increasing awareness. They may end up practicing themselves. Then they can move on to playing something. Number 7, ask them what they think is right. It can be great to say aloud what your child says. Pick your battles here and times to do this if you feel like that they're not going to get too frustrated. By no means do we want to do this all day, but maybe 5 times a day you can ask your child, "You just said this. Does that sound right? Maybe try it like this." Again, we're increasing awareness. And also, again, you be the judge. You know your child best. You don't want to frustrate them too much. Number 8, utilize siblings. If there are younger or older siblings that do not have this particular speech issues and they're willing to help, sometimes brother and sister can be the single most motivating factor. There's nothing like a big brother to want to impress, right? Or a big sister. So use. And lastly, you can go to our website, Time to Chat, and we have trainings that you can access on there. Tons of videos to show you tricks of the trade, and practice material. Oh my God, this is just horrible. And lastly, visit our website. It's timetochat.org, and we have tons of training. And lastly, visit our website. We have trainings that you can access on there that you will. And lastly, visit our website, timetochat.org. You can access trainings on there where you will learn many more of our tricks of the trade, I suppose. And these trainings actually show plenty of videos, and you can get also material that you can use within the house. As I was saying, as we talked about, so obviously if you start kind of interjecting all of these things in your child's daily life, you are shaking things up a little bit, right? And you are most decidedly going to be carving out those new pathways. And you are most decidedly going to be carving out those new pathways. Your children are young. They don't have to hear things near as many times as we do or practice things as many times as we do to start making impressive progress. I see it all the time with the little kids that I work with. I see it all the time with the kids that I work with. We'll just go outside and play, not necessarily practice drill all day. I see it all the time with kids that I work with. We'll go outside and play and just infuse play with the sounds that they're working on. Do a little bit of drill, but not that much. And I don't know what it is, but it works like magic. It is genuinely sometimes like osmosis. So get out there and change things up. So get out there and change things up. Realize that you are your child's most important asset. Be silly with them. Be goofy with them. You can make up ridiculous words that have their sounds in it. And I promise you, if you start doing this, and I promise you, you start doing this, throwing this all into your daily life, just adapting a little bit, you will see quick and impressive changes out of your child. And who knows, you might not just see changes in them, you might see some in yourself. Find out that doing things differently in your own life and who knows, you might not just see, and who knows, maybe you won't just see changes in them. Maybe changing things up a little bit will brighten up your day a little bit too. So go out there, do things a little bit differently, break from the norm a little bit. Grab your kid, twirl them around, look at them in the eyes and say, hey, it's time to chat. Thanks, guys.